Hi all. Wanted to help you with the setup of questions 2 and 3 and be sure that you get started on the right foot. So question number 2, it says in Pisum sativum, tall plants are dominant to short, while purple flower color is dominant to white. So let's define those alleles before we start. So it says tall and short. So since the tall is dominant, let's use T. So capital T for a tall plant. So the characteristic that we're addressing here is plant height. And then little t for short. So tall plants are dominant to short in Pisum sativum. Then it says that purple flower color is dominant to white. Well, we don't want to use the P for the upper and lowercase p's, so let's use F for flower color. So capital F, lowercase f. And then it says that purple flower color is dominant. So our uppercase F is then purple flowers, making our lowercase f white flowers. All right, so now we've defined our alleles. Let's go back to the problem and see what the problem asks or tells us of our parents. So it says a heterozygous tall plant with white flowers is crossed with a short plant that's heterozygous for its purple flowers. So again, these are dihybrid crosses, so you're looking at two characteristics, plant height and flower color. So let's define our parents. These are still sexually reproducing organisms, so just because they're plants doesn't mean that they aren't parents. So let's draw ourselves one parent and then the other parent. So it says heterozygous tall. So this individual is tall and it's heterozygous. So a heterozygous tall plant with white flowers. So heterozygous tall with white flowers is crossed with a short plant. So this plant is short. It's crossed with a short plant that is heterozygous for its purple flowers. So it has the capital F, the dominant purple allele, but it's a heterozygote. So it's purple, but it's heterozygous purple. So there are your parents. You have a tall white plant being crossed with a short purple flowering plant. Fine. So when you go to write your genotypes here, don't forget that it needs to be alphabetical. So even though the problem sets you up with tall and then the flower color, the F comes first because of the alphabet. So we're going to look at flower color first. So since this individual has white flowers, this is the recessive condition. So the genotype for this parent for its flower color is little f, little f. And then for the height, it's a tall plant, which means it carries and expresses the dominant allele, the capital T. But the problem told us that this parent is a heterozygous tall, which means it's big T, little t. So here is your white flowered plant that is heterozygous for tall. Whereas this plant is being crossed with an individual that has purple flowers and is short. So if it's purple flowers, that means it carries and expresses the dominant purple allele, the big F. But the problem told us that this parent is heterozygous purple. Hetero, meaning different, a different pair. So that's big F, little f. And then the plant is short, so it's little t, little t. So now you're going to take those alleles and practice the distributive property from math. And don't forget that you're doing the F before the T. And then you're coming over here and you're distributing the F and distributing the F. So you'll get 4 pairs of alleles here and you'll get 4 pairs of alleles here. So that should really help you with the setup on question number 2. Be comfortable with starting your genotypes with the lowercase recessive letter. It always goes alphabetical. All right, let's take a look at question number 3. Question number 3 is fun because it takes 2 conditions with the eye. So they're asking here about Homo sapiens having typical vision and having red-green color blindness. So, as always, let's dissect the problem. So it says, in Homo sapiens, the allele for typical vision, so typical vision is dominant to the allele for red-green color blindness. Don't forget that red-green color blindness is sex-linked. Those alleles are located on the larger X chromosome, the 23rd pair. So now we go from the ability to see color to the actual protein that's embedded in the iris of the eye. So here it says the allele for brown eyes is dominant to the allele for blue. So we're dealing with color blindness and then the color in the iris of the eye. Okay. All right, so let's set up the alleles, and then I'm going to cut you loose to do this on your own. So color blindness. Color blindness is sex-linked, which means that we're dealing with the X chromosome, like such. Okay. Now I'm going to stay away from B for blindness because I want to use capital B for brown and little b for blue eyes. So I'm going to use E for the eye. So we have an X with the capital E attached, or we have the X with the lowercase e. So here is your 23rd chromosome, the X, with the color blindness allele here, and the other X with the typical vision. So go back to the problem and find out, is color blindness dominant or is color blindness recessive? It turns out that color blindness is recessive, which means the typical vision is dominant. So those are your 2 choices for the X. Now, you're also going to have to address the male. Now, there are alleles that are carried on the Y chromosome. Those are called Holandric traits, and we'll talk about those when you guys come back for IB. So these are the 3 alleles that you're going to handle with the color blindness part of the problem. Then they ask about brown and blue eyes. Here's where I saved my letter B. Go back and look at the problem. Which color eye is dominant? The problem tells you that brown eyes are dominant to blue. Now, eye color really isn't this simple. Turns out that eye color is actually polygenic. It's a combination of 3 pairs of alleles. And hey, guess what? We'll talk about that when you come back to me for IB. But for right now, we will keep the eye color genetic simple and make it big B for brown and little b for blue. So these are the alleles that you're going to use as you set up question number 4. It is a combination of sex-linked color vision and the actual color of the iris of the eye with blue and brown eyes. Have fun.